things started to happen. So suddenly I was like in the Amazon charts next to my favorite book and author, Paulo Coelho. In summer I sold more books in Spain than the Pope, which is also incredible. I was in the radio, I get invited to the television suddenly. So what happens is, what brought me there from there to there was my habits. 20 years ago when I was a student, there was no science. You could believe it or not believe it. You could say, oh, that's hocus pocus. But science is catching up with all that stuff. The next 30, 40 minutes, I'm going to give you the best exercises also to change little habits and become happier on the way and everything that follows. Like I said before, the habits you will learn today are not new. They work, but only a small percentage of people actually do them. Sometimes we want to change our lives, but we do always the same thing. We do the same thing, the same thing, the same thing, and we want a different result. And Einstein already said that's the purest form of insanity. If you're doing the same thing over and over, you will get the same result over and over. If you want to change the end result, you have to start now. Now is the most important time always. Not yesterday and not tomorrow. It's always now. I have now known many successful people. I have studied many successful people. Nobody, when you ask them, they also know I worked a lot. My one night success from today to tomorrow took me 10 years. My success with the book took me, it was one day when it was downloaded, but before I worked 1 year like a crazy man. If you work hard, opportunities come, and it can seem to the outside like luck, but you will know it's not luck, it's the fruit of my work. So looking at the positive is definitely helping. Yeah, that doesn't mean to ignore the negative, but always concentrate more on the positive. It's also not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. One day this is something horrible happened to me, and half a year later, you said, oh, that wasn't so bad. Actually, that saved me from another mistake, or it made me take another turn in my life, which worked out great. You never know. For example, for me, being fired is a horrible experience. But now I want to go to my ex-boss and say, thank you. Thank you. Without you, it wouldn't have been possible, because bad things happen. But at the end, still, it's you who has the control to say, okay, is it really that bad? Is it still important in 10 years? It's not the government, it's not the teacher, it's not your wife, your mother. You have the responsibility. What does this? This means that you are in control. Because if it's the professor, if your professor is guilty that you are not a good student, what has to happen? The professor has to change so that you can be a good student. And that might not happen. But if you say, okay, it's me, I'm in charge here, what can I do? Maybe I can study more, maybe I go to a study group. Then suddenly you have to control. You can become a better student without change of professor. Everywhere. If you buy a red Golf, suddenly it seems whole Barcelona is full of red Golfs. And it's not, there are not more, but it's because in your brain, when you start focusing on something, you see more of it. Just what are you focusing on? That's a question you can ask yourself all the time. It's like, well, am I on the positive or do I see the negative? Am I in the past or am I in the present? If you focus on a problem, you can turn circles and circles and circles and circles, and you just see the problem, and the problem gets bigger and bigger. When you start looking for solutions, you will find the solution. That you can do it. Ask me, how can it be done? Because it's very good to know a lot, but if you don't put it in practice, and that was my problem for 20 years. You know, I knew all the theory, and I still was in bad relationships, in a bad job, until I said, something is missing. Yeah, maybe I should not just talk about what I'm doing, and I should actually start 3 things every morning that you're grateful for. 3 things.
Com veu aquests souvenirs y com veu el turisme?
Exacto. Ahora todo lo que hemos aprendido de vosotros, multiplícalo con 10 por 10, porque desde fuera tenemos una imagen aún mejor de Barcelona que quizás hasta vosotros mismos, porque a veces viniendo de fuera ves todo lo bueno que hay. Mira, cuando Bruno me ha dicho, haces el relato del turista, yo no, Bruno, llevo 14 años. Pero él ha sabido detectar esto. Yo después de 14 años todavía veo la ciudad con los ojos de un turista y por eso me encanta. Y a veces voy por el barrio gótico, voy por ahí solo mirando y parece que son las mismas calles, pero cada semana cambian. Y antes, cuando venían mis amigos a Barcelona, les he dicho esto: el ves a la Rambla y luego métete en el barrio gótico y fluye, déjate llevar y es fantástico. Así, pues vemos a Barcelona mucho mejor. La cosa que a mí me gusta mucho de este proyecto es que la marca Barcelona ya tiene un super estatus en el mundo. Ya empiezan en las películas de Hollywood, donde antes los protagonistas han dicho, bueno, me he ido a París, ahora dicen, me voy a Barcelona. Esto es increíble. Esto hace 10 años no estaban las películas. Además, y me gusta de este premio que dice, claro, los souvenirs igual todavía no están a la altura del resto, porque yo, por ejemplo, yo soy de Stuttgart, y en Stuttgart nunca venderíamos algún souvenir de Múnich, aunque nos llevamos bien con ellos, pero Stuttgart es Stuttgart y Múnich es Múnich. Entonces, esto es una super iniciativa para que el talento que hay, porque es esto, cada vez tiene más talento a Barcelona. De Estados Unidos, de todos lados, todos se dan cuenta que esto es un sitio donde la creatividad es como explota. Entonces, coger este talento y hacer este premio, decir, bueno, ponémonos a la altura también en los souvenirs, como esta ciudad se merece, creo que es fantástico.
No sé, molt interessant també el punt de vista que ens mira des de...
This is basically the book that became a bestseller on Amazon.
Changed my life, change your habits, change your life, and it changed my life.
Surprisingly, presumably for you, that it became a bestseller.
Yeah, it's like, for me, it was like a dream. This is things you read about, you hear about, but you never think that it happens to you, you know? And then suddenly, I came on a newsletter, a quite famous newsletter in the United States. They accepted me, and suddenly in one day I had 40,000 downloads. No, in 3 days it was 40,000 downloads on Amazon. And then the machinery goes, and suddenly you sell, because those were free. That was even free downloads. But then you go up in the rankings of Amazon. You're #1. I outsold Tim Ferriss and David Allen, these great writers. And then suddenly it started, and it didn't stop anymore. And I remember the first month. I have a calendar where I write down all my sales numbers. I was always like this: make it last one more day, make it last one more day, and it lasted until now, and I hope many more.
Just to play devil's advocate with you a second. So, if I can imagine people saying to you, I can see all your points, but I don't have the discipline. How do I get the discipline? Because that is another very German thing.
Sign me as a coach. I will help you. Okay. No, but it's like the first thing that you have to start is to say, stop saying that you don't have discipline. Okay. Until today, I didn't have discipline. Right. And it's also about how important are your goals for you. You know, because I had a client like this. In India, a girl, and she had goals, but then she said also, I'm not motivated, I have no discipline. And I said, then we have to look at your goals again, because if your goals are big enough, then you don't have a motivation problem. We changed her goals, and suddenly
make them realistic.
She started, exactly, realistic, but also big.
But
you know,
big enough to
if you don't get out of your bed, then you have to look for your goals, and then you have to tweak something there.
Well, tell us a bit about writing the book. So, did you just sit down and say, I'm going to write a self-help book? No,
I sat down and I said I will write 2,000 words a day, because that's how you get it done. Right. If you say
like a grain of sand, isn't
exactly,
it? Building a...
It worked, and everything works like that. If I would have said I sit down and write now a book of 200 pages, I would probably have never finished it, because there's so much overwhelm there. But if you sit down and say, I'm going to sit down and write 2,000 books a day, or I write from 6:30 to 9:30 every day, and then you forget about everything else. After 2 months, you suddenly have quite some words there, and then you don't give up anymore. And then I started to, also, it's like the first draft. You just write. I just wrote, and then when I had finished everything, that was the first time I looked at it. What did I actually write? And then I started editing myself first.
L'inici és la part més important del treball. Citant a Plató, així comença el llibre de Marc Reklau. 30 dies, canvia d'hàbits, canvia de vida. Fa 2 anys es va quedar a l'atur i va decidir reinventar-se. I el seu llibre ja porta 80.000 descàrregues, número 1 als Estats Units. L'acompanyem en el seu ritual de cada matí, que assegura és la millor manera de començar el dia.
Cada mañana me escribo 3 a 5 cosas que agradezco, que pueden ser pequeñas cosas, como, bueno, la cama, tener bonita casa, estar aquí en Premia de Mar, tener buenos amigos y en la noche lo hago otra vez pensando qué buenas cosas me han pasado hoy en el día y esto cambia tu foco.
S'aixeca molt d'hora i fa un passeig mentre escolta cançons que el motiven. Després medita mentre veu sortir el sol.
Imagínate cómo empieza el día. Si lo haces así, o si te despiertas en la cama y dices, oh, hoy tengo que ir a trabajar, oh Dios. Claro, es un cambio. Este cambio lo notas durante todo el día.
Reklau reconeix que no ha inventat els 90 hàbits del llibre, però en destaca la importància de ser constant i practicar-los per assolir resultats reals. I ens convida a motivar-nos amb els 5 hàbits que destaca. Apuntem. Agrair 3 coses just en despertar-nos. Fer un passeig matiner, escoltar música, veure sortir el sol i planificar-nos per ser més productius i feliços.